Welcome to our digital presentation, What Can You Find in Your County Archives? A Guide to Local Authority Archives. My name is Catherine Wright and I'm the archivist at Wicklow County Archives, located at the new Wicklow Library and Archives here in the lovely seaside town of Wicklow. As a local authority archivist, my core role is to preserve and make accessible the collections of Wicklow County Archives. In this presentation, I will outline a selection of the main collections in the Wicklow Archives, which are common to most county archives collections. Like most local authority archives, we hold the records of the town councils and the county council, as well as the various predecessor bodies of local government, such as the corporation boroughs, the grand juries, poor law unions and rural district councils. We also hold private collections relating to families and businesses and organisations. As you can see here, our digitised resources include many of our key collections, including workhouse and grand jury records and town and county council minute books. These records can be viewed on wicklow.ie in the archives section of the website. Our current digitisation project, the Minute Books of the Poor Law Union of Rathdrum, is funded by Creative Ireland. These records will be uploaded to wicklow.ie in the coming months. Let me begin our tour by introducing you to our oldest collection, the Minute Books of the Wicklow Borough Corporation, dating from 1654. Many towns in Ireland were administered by a borough council or corporation. Wicklow is often known as the last county. It only became a separate county from Dublin in 1606, making it the last county in Ireland to be sharded. The borough of Wicklow, or the area now known as Wicklow Town, was incorporated by the English Crown in 1613, meaning that Wicklow Borough could return 2 MPs to Parliament up to the Act of Union in 1800. A Wicklow corporation consisted of a portreeve, burgesses and freemen, Old English terms roughly equating to the mayor and voting citizens. Apart from a brief spell under James II in the late 1680s, Catholics were excluded from being burgesses or freemen. So what can you find in these records? The names of the portreeves, the burgesses and freemen are all listed, and details of payments made, including tolls collected. The works described in the minutes provide information on the development of the town, with references to buildings, place names, roads, bridges, and indeed the families active in the business and administration aspects of the town's history. We see here an early reference in 1716 to the building of Wicklow Jail and the building of other public buildings. The corporation's loyalty to the Crown is evident in the various oaths of allegiance, and we also see how the big events further afield impacted on local community, such as military victories, which were celebrated often with copious amounts of ale. This extract dates from 1702, and it refers to the Anglo-French War and also the English Crown. James II had died in 1701, and his son James III, described here as the Pretender, pursued a claim to the throne. I think you will agree they are tantalising records, bringing the Wicklow town of over 3 centuries ago to life with details such as the installation of the town clock, the fumigation of the market house, straw and candles for Wicklow prisoners, etc. Another very interesting collection that we hold here in County Archives and is common to most local authority archives is the Grand Jury collection. The Grand Jury was the highest authority in the county until the county councils were established in 1898 and 99. It had its origins in the medieval times when a sheriff appointed by royal authority administered the county and chose a grand jury at the spring and summer assizes when the king's judges visited. The grand jury were a panel of major landowners established in each county to make decisions on legal and other matters. Although originally responsible only for the justice system, their remit was gradually expanded to commissioning of local public works, such as building of roads and bridges, the maintenance of public buildings, infirmaries, courthouses, jails, etc. It funded these works by means of a county tax on land known as a cess. You might have heard the phrase "bad cess to you." That comes from these these works. Catholics could not legally serve on grand juries until 1793, and even after this date the jury lists were still predominantly Protestant. The grand jury met in spring and summer to hear presentments. These were proposals for works to be carried out, such as construction and maintenance of roads, bridges, etc., or public building upkeep. And they would also consider and approve payments to public officials or tradesmen for services rendered. These assizes produced a collection of records known as the Grand Jury Presentment Books. You can see here the records that we have in the Wicklow Archives relating to the Grand Jury, including presentment books dating from 1818. Most counties have a collection of grand jury records, with many holding earlier manuscript sources for that body. Wicklow County Archives are delighted to be a participating partner in the Beyond 2022 project, which has culminated in the virtual reassembly of over 7 centuries of Irish archives lost in the fire at the Public Records Office during the Civil War in 1922. The website of the Irish Records Treasury was launched recently, and it is a fascinating and hugely significant resource. Wicklow County Archives contributed our digitised collection of grand jury presentments to be virtually placed on the shelves of the Records Treasury. You can also find a very useful booklet and resources on the grand jury on their website, including videos from Wicklow, Donegal and Offaly County Archives Services about their grand jury collection. And just to remind you that our grand jury presentment books are available on wicklow.ie as a digitised resource. And now we're going to move on to another core collection which is common to most local authority archives. The Poor Law Unions were established under the Poor Law Ireland Act in 1838 as a response to widespread poverty. The Boards of Guardians were the governing body of the Workhouse and the Poor Law Union. While many were mainly responsible for the running of the workhouses, the functions of the Boards of Guardians were gradually extended to include public health, sanitation and rural housing. But the Local Government Act of 1898 saw most of its public health functions taken over by the newly created Wicklow County Council. The board continued to administer the workhouse and its hospital and to supervise some of the forms of outdoor relief to the poor until its abolishment in 1923. The County Archives collection of admission and discharge registers of the Rathdrum and Shillelagh workhouses date from famine times. They tell the story of the poor and destitute in the county in stark reality. Some of the headings under which information was recorded include number, name of pauper, their marital status, if they were a child of another pauper in the workhouse, the trade or calling of the pauper, disabled and nature of disability, observations on condition upon admission, date admitted, if they were born in the workhouse and when they were born, and a date of death or discharge from the workhouse. These are perhaps our most poignant records, illustrating the suffering of the poor in the lists of names of those admitted to the institutions, not only in famine times but throughout the 19th and early 20th century. We see here the admittance of 3 children to Shillelagh Workhouse in 1847, William, aged 5, Joanna, aged 8, and James, aged 3, all deserted. The description in the register reads, mother and father in America, no friends to support them. The register tells us that each child was discharged from the workhouse on a separate date. If all or any of these children survived, then it is likely that they have descendants still living who I am sure would be captivated by these records and may pursue other sources to follow their story through the records. Again, these workhouse registers can be accessed on wicklow.ie. The Poor Law Union Minute Books are the largest series of Poor Law archives surviving, reflecting not only the functions of the Boards of Guardians, but also the resolutions on internal and poor law matters and on wider political and social issues. The board consisted of elected candidates as well as ex officio members, appointed usually from amongst the local magistrates and landowners. This created an interesting mix of backgrounds and attitudes of the day. They provide insight into poor relief and social conditions in the county from the famine all the way up to the early 20th century, including relief efforts during the famine. And there is information on the running of the workhouse, the diet, discipline, various epidemics, emigration schemes, the boarding out of children and orphan children, dispensaries, vaccinations, etc. Significantly, women could serve as guardians from 1896. We see here a lovely portrait of Teresa Dargan, who served as both a poor law guardian and a rural district councillor. You can learn more about Teresa on our Community Archives website, Our Wicklow Heritage. Well, the Local Government Act of 1898 brought dramatic reform in Irish local democracy with the formation of the County Council system in 1899. The old grand juries and boards of guardians, dominated by the landowning classes, were replaced by democratically elected county councillors. The Act extended the franchise to most occupiers of property and included women for the first time. Women could also contest both rural and urban district council elections. As a result, nationalist candidates won the majority of seats, and most county councils, including Wicklow, were predominantly nationalists. You can see the extract from the minutes here of the first meeting of Wicklow County Council, where resolutions on Home Rule, a Catholic university and evicted tenants were passed. Broad range of information is available in the minute books of Wicklow County Council, as well as the various town and rural councils. And if you think of its wide functions in relation to housing, roads, motoring, planning, libraries, etc., and the records of these functions generated labourers, cottages, ledgers, valuation records, administrative files, and we have the county boards of health and public assistance also, all for the archivist to catalogue. They are wonderfully rich archival sources illustrating the various aspects of local administration and democratic government during one of the most significant periods in Irish history, particularly around the decade of centenaries period that we are in at the moment. The 1920 local elections saw a landslide victory for Sinn Féin. County councils passed resolutions recognising the new Dáil Éireann and essentially disengaging from the British Local Government Board. This resulted in a great deal of hardship on local authority officials who found themselves on the wrong side of the RIC. The Local Government Archivists and Records Management Group worked together with the Department of Housing and Local Government to produce this booklet, Democracy and Change, which gives a background to the beginnings of county councils and the lead up to the War of Independence. We also have several collections of private papers in the Wicklow County Archives, one of our most significant being the Barton Papers for the Bartons of Glendalough House, Animo. Of course, the most notable of the Bartons was Robert Childers Barton, minister in the First Dáil in 1919. He was a member of the Anglo-Irish Treaty Delegation and indeed a reluctant signatory. Ironically, he then fought on the anti-treaty side in the Civil War. While Barton was imprisoned during the War of Independence, Wicklow County Council honoured him by making him chairman of the council in 1920 and formally objecting to his imprisonment. The items in the collection of the Barton Papers relate to the running of the Barton estate, as well as some documents on Barton's military and political career. One such document is a letter shown here, dated 8th of June 1924, to Robert Childers Barton from the Sinn Féin West Wicklow Corlacianter, expressing regret at his announcement to leave public life. This letter vividly shows the pressure and turmoil Robert Barton experienced as a delegate and a signatory of the treaty in 1921, and his subsequent decision to side on the anti-treaty forces during the Civil War. Indeed, this document is made all the more poignant when you consider that Barton's first cousin, Erskine Childers, was executed by the Free State Army in 1922. The cousins were raised together from boyhood in Glendalough House. And here we have a set of postcards from the Barton collection commemorating the truce marking the end of the War of Independence in July 1921. Showing you here a selection of items from another private collection held by Wicklow County Archives, the papers of the Frizzell family of Castlekevin near Glendalough, who would have been neighbours of the Bartons. Dating from the late 1700s, a very interesting collection of documents, including maps, tenant and court records. Collections such as these not only tell the story of landed estates and how they were managed, but they also are rich in local and family history information. Another perhaps quite unusual collection in our archives is the Tate Charity Trust collection. This trust was established in 1797 after the death of John Tate, who left instructions in his will for his estate to be given in aid of the poor of Rathdrum. I'd like to tell you a little bit about some of the special projects of the Wicklow County Archives. In 2019, Wicklow County Archives worked with the Courthouse Arts Centre, Tinnahealy, Trinity College Dublin and the National Library of Ireland to create a database of the records of the Fitzwilliam estate, one of the most extensive collections of estate papers surviving in Ireland and held at the National Library. It was in fact one of the largest estates in County Wicklow. The Fitzwilliams were considered to be progressive landlords, and from 1847 to 1856 they assisted hundreds of families to emigrate to Canada for work. Wicklow County Archives provided our digitised collections of grand jury and workhouse registers, just to create layers of information for the descendants of those on the estate, as well as researchers generally. This website is called coolatinlives.ie and includes lots of information and images. Wicklow County Archives are also very proud to work with the National Museum of Ireland on the Irish Community Archives Network, or ICAN project, which is supported by the Creative Ireland programme and the Heritage Council. Our Community Archives Network in County Wicklow is called Our Wicklow Heritage, and you can see here our network groups: the Delgany Heritage Village, Donard Mal History, Glendalough Heritage Forum, Glens of Lead and the Medieval Bray Project. Coordinated by the Wicklow Heritage Office, it is a platform to share the collections and activities of the Heritage Office, the Wicklow Library Service and the Wicklow County Archives Service, and it's a wonderful way to facilitate engagement by members of the public with the heritage and history of their county, where they are invited to contribute information to the site and to comment and add to any articles uploaded. It creates a very dynamic environment for sharing of our heritage and history online. You will also find our genealogy guides on Our Wicklow Heritage, providing information for the main sources for family history in County Wicklow. County archivists have also been hugely involved in decade of centenary projects and events around the country. Wicklow County Archives coordinated the Historians Project with the support of the Irish Government Decade of Centenaries programme and Wicklow County Council. Hosted on Our Wicklow Heritage, you can explore articles and images from 12 of our leading Wicklow historians. They tell the story of this tumultuous period in our history from the viewpoint of the localities in Wicklow they have researched. Wicklow County Archives have also worked with the History Ireland Hedge Schools to produce 3 podcasts about this period, including a panel discussion on Robert Childers Barton. These can be found on Our Wicklow Heritage and on the History Ireland website. As part of the Historians Project, Wicklow County Archives also produced the book Wicklow and the War of Independence, featuring a selection of essays from our 12 historians and also some wonderful images. The e-book is available free to access on Our Wicklow Heritage, or if you would prefer the hard copy, it is on sale in Wicklow bookshops and on their websites. Wicklow County Archives welcomes school groups from both primary and secondary school to come and explore our collections. Thanks to funding from the Heritage Council under their new Heritage Stewardship Grant, we are producing a Teachers and Students Resource Pack, providing a guide to our collections and how they can be used in the Leaving Cert History Research Study Report. This is part of our wider education programme to highlight local archives and their value as educational resources. You can see here some of the websites I mentioned in this presentation if you would like to explore them a little more. And you can contact me at archives@wicklow.co.ie. I'd like to thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this short tour of the Wicklow County Archives.